BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. And yes, indeed, we are going to be having a couple of uploads coming out quickly this week. It's one of the things about staying at home, but also we have the new book project going to be starting a book discussion on Time 17 by Gareth Penn, so look out for that later this week on this channel. Now we are continuing onward with our examination of Tiger King, just the life and times of an individual named Joseph Schreibvogel, otherwise known as Joe Exotic. And yes, indeed, we are following the Netflix series Tiger King. And if you haven't seen that yet, I would really encourage you to keep listening, because we're just going to be asking some very bold questions. And I would love to hear your responses to the challenge questions from this upload. First and foremost, I'd like to give a shout out to YouTube user Still Falling. And Still Falling left a comment on the part 1 segment that we did, talking about the Zanesville, Ohio incident, saying the Zanesville incident happened when the owner set all the animals free and then killed himself. He was not alive to be punished for the actions. I was talking about that one, but I was going off the memory of someone who saw this on the news 8 years ago, and you're really going to have to excuse me for that one. It turns out, actually, the comments that I was referring to in part 1 were not from the owner of the animals in the Zanesville, Ohio incident. It was from a different zookeeper, a different person who owned a private zoo, who said that it takes one person to ruin it for everyone. Somebody different was involved with that. So, we're just trying to do a little bit of clarification there. Moving on to Tiger King. So right now we're going to do a response to parts 3 and 4 of the Netflix series Tiger King, docu-series out, available now, you can stream. And what I would say with this one is they really explore the possibility of big cat zoos, private zookeepers. Is this a cult? Is there any type of cult leadership that is going on with this particular profession? And I would have to tell you, before watching the docu-series Tiger King, would I have ever thought that big cat zoos would be something that could be a cult? My answer would have been, well, no, that sounds crazy. But the thing that was presented in the docu-series Tiger King is more like, it is a job that requires so much devotion that people are living on site. They get the food that the owner gives them. They work the hours that the owner gives them. They live where they're told. They wear what they're told. They get only so much, and they have to commit almost the entirety of their life to this profession. So it really creates the possibility for exploitation. And maybe they didn't say those words exactly in parts 3 and 4 of Tiger King, but what I would say about it is that you really begin to look at some of the people who are involved with this, and you can see that they are very subservient, very obedient. But the big things we explore with cults, and we've talked about a lot of cults on this channel in a variety of different ways. The big things that we say with cult leadership is, first and foremost, they discredit the ways of the past. Secondarily, they create a new way. And then the third thing is they tell people that they are missing something, and the only way to get it is to follow this new way that they've created. And I don't necessarily know if that's exactly what's going on with people like Joe Exotic or Carol Baskin, because what happens with this one is, it seems just like very large personalities, people who really want to overinflate their image. They are trying to become celebrities within their own circle. There's a lust for not only power, but also a lust for fame. And they really had the ability to create this sense of fame in a microcosm. Joe Exotic TV. And in part 1, we were talking about one of the lines that for some reason I found funny in the past, when Joe Exotic went up to a funeral in Chicago and someone jumped over the fence and blew up his alligator house, killed 7 alligators and 1 crocodile. And the first time I heard that years ago, I laughed because it's an outrageous thing. But when you actually think about it, it's like, poor alligators and crocodiles. I mean, that's just, that's just a nasty thing to do. Even to, most people don't often think about alligators and crocodiles when it comes to animal rights, but it's like, it's a nasty thing, no matter who was behind that arson job. But that's what they were exploring in parts 3 and 4 of Tiger King. Somebody burned down Joe Exotic's alligator house. Who done it? And really sees an enormous amount of possibilities here. It could have been someone associated to his arch rival, Carol Baskin, and it could have been someone who is associated with Joe Exotic himself. It could have been his cameraman who staunchly denies this, and as well as just someone on Joe Exotic's team trying to do this for sympathy, trying to get the media coverage around this to get donations, finances, attention, so that you just see this web of possibilities that are going out there. But that's still a very, very risky thing to do to your own property, as well as destroying all of the film that was recorded for Joe Exotic TV and no backups. I mean, the cameraman was saying that he was crying when he saw that happen. But in this one, they explore the possibility of Carol Baskin being a murderer. They think that she murdered her ex-husband and fed him to the tigers. And I believe the docuseries was also giving out the possibility that he may have been a pilot and doing something risky, and perhaps he died in a plane crash over a body of water somewhere. Accidents over bodies of water are very common, and they were just simply unable to locate him. But apparently, when someone goes missing, they have to be missing for 5 years before they can be declared legally dead. And after 5 years and 1 day, Carol Baskin declared her husband legally dead. 5 years and 1 day, and then, of course, trying to get a hold of his estate. What you can see with this one is that you have two very large personalities. Joe Exotic from his zoo in Oklahoma, and Carol Baskin from the Big Cat Rescue. They even get into a financial standoff trying to go back and forth about the name of Big Cat Rescue. Joe Exotic ends up being forced to pay $1 million, or there's $1 million judgment, we should say. It's never really so simple as someone has to pay $1 million in the legal system. After watching parts 3 and 4, you can see, though, that somebody like Joe Exotic was someone that I had heard about before. I mentioned in part 1 that I had heard his statements before when he was running for president. They featured him on John Oliver for a little bit, just like a microsecond, more or less. But you really see that that's something that is so much larger. Joe Exotic is somebody who knows how to be outrageous to attract attention to himself. He knows how to be outrageous to draw people in. He knows how to make lots of noise to draw a crowd, and perhaps even talks about maybe a tiger's going to urinate on you and you can buy a t-shirt saying you got pissed on by a tiger. And I was like, no, I don't think I'd do that. But is there really a cult leader mentality going on with this? I mean, a tiger cult? And it's not only tigers, as we mentioned, it was the alligator house that got blown up. I just have to go off on a little bit of a tangent right here. This is a total side note. When we were talking about cults in the past, one of them, and they're called Marvelous Work and a Wonder, their political side is called the Humanity Party. They put out a bulletin once about alligators and crocodiles, saying that the world doesn't need animals like alligators and crocodiles because they can eat people. And I know they're just some far-out, wacky, political, quasi-religious group, and they're just saying a bunch of stuff, and I was following them for a while, and I was even thinking about promoting some of their political stuff because they had some interesting things to say. Then they put this thing out: the world doesn't need alligators and crocodiles because they shouldn't have animals on Earth that can eat people. And I'm like, I can't do anything with you guys. That is too silly for its own good. Challenge question number 1. Does the world deserve to have alligators and crocodiles? Do we need to get rid of alligators and crocodiles because they're too dangerous? I don't know. Maybe just don't go swimming in the river, without paying attention to where you are or something like that. That could be an alternative. But in all seriousness, this has really just erupted an enormous amount of questions have erupted from this, and one of the people that is featured in the docuseries is an individual named Dr. Bhagavan Antle. I swear I saw him on the TV 15 years ago talking about ligers, but I'm not 100% sure if it was him or not. And I actually really liked that the parts of the documentary we were just watching were not so much focused on him, because they don't exactly give all of the reasons why he's connected to the story. I felt more that they were trying to use Dr. Bhagavan Antle, otherwise known as Doc, as someone who was just also in the field, someone who could also be running a sort of tiger cult. And I mean, that's a big thing that I would just like to ask you. Do you think that big cat zoos could ever possibly have a cult leader mentality? Oh, I mean, like, and I know it's might even be somewhat of an unpopular opinion, but it seems like yes. It seems like there is a component to this where it becomes very much about obedience and dominance. That there's somebody who is at the top, and that person is almost abusing power in terms of top-down leadership. Would I say that it's actually a cult? No, I would not. What I would say is that people just get pulled into a job that puts them into this all-encompassing lifestyle. But when you want to look at an individual like Carole Baskin, it seems like Joe Exotic was making many death threats toward his rival, saying that if he sees someone who looks like her and dresses up a mannequin as Carole Baskin, that he's just going to shoot her in the head, and he pulls out a gun and shoots the mannequin in the head. I mean, was this actually the result of an unstable personality, or is this just somebody who is very frustrated about certain things that are going on in the court system? I think it's the latter. That's more of just someone who is very frustrated. But as we see, though, it's also perhaps somebody who has this mentally unstable personality that could be budding, that could be growing, that the destructive tendencies could be growing out of control. And that's where the series is really going. That's the direction that they are trying to take us. They're trying to show us that this could be something that could be really ballooning out of control. And once again, we've done 4 episodes of the docuseries Tiger King. I really think, though, that it's starting to heat up. Like I said, after the first 2, I was really underwhelmed, though, because someone was posting on Twitter saying, oh my gosh, this is the most shocking story I've ever heard. And I watched the first 2 episodes, and I'm like, okay, this really isn't like the most exciting story in the world. I've seen Joe Exotic before, and as I mentioned, I follow his Twitter page, and you can see a lot of what people have to say about Joe Exotic, and as well as watching him in the past. Yeah, we get it. He's a loudmouth personality who is gay, but possibly married to straight men. He likes blonde mullets and shooting things, and he also has lots of big cats. But the thing about that is that parts 3 and 4 really heated it up a little bit, because they really brought into this possibility of what happened to Carole Baskin's ex-husband, a millionaire who disappeared. I was just surprised when they were saying that there was so much media coverage around that. It was a very big story. I mean, like, it's not one of those things that happens and then there's just no press coverage and that you learn about it 15 years later or something. It was very widely publicized at the time, and they have all the media clips put up in Tiger King. Do I believe that she had anything to do with her husband's disappearance? You know, it's like, at this point, based on how little information I've seen, I couldn't say one thing or another. What it also goes to show you is that they did something in Tiger King called the Fur Ball, where people dress up in costumes and then they go to this dance called the Fur Ball. It's a fundraiser. And Joe Exotic was revealing some statistics about that, talking about how that fundraiser brought in less money than it cost to put on. I think that is something that happens all the time with fundraising, and fundraising events from nonprofits can be very sketchy. Well, it's just the whole concept of you don't necessarily know what's happening to the money, and that's something we should always be aware of. And that's where I think we're going to have to leave it for now. Okay, though, so I guess we're going to be looking forward to the next episodes of Tiger King. Thank you to anyone who's listened this far. Thank you to anyone who has also been following the Netflix series Tiger King. And if you want to discuss this in the comments section below, please drop some comments below. If you like this upload, you can hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you're welcome to do so. But most importantly, please drop some comments below. And does the earth deserve to have alligators and crocodiles? Until next time.